The president currently is an American judge, so that would have a lot of impact on America, which of course is Israel's main backer. It's very notable. Lord Cameron, the British Foreign Secretary, was in Israel this week. Britain, of course, was a very strong supporter of Israel at the start of the war. Even Britain is now calling for a ceasefire, a permanent end to hostilities. Cameron was quite clear about the need to present a path, even now, as the war proceeds, towards a solution that includes a two-state solution, which Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, is set against.
Now, the International Court of Justice could order Israel to halt its military operations in Gaza in an interim ruling expected later. The UN's top court is considering South Africa's claim that the war amounts to genocide against Palestinians. Times correspondent Richard Spencer is in Israel. Morning.
Good morning.
So first of all, just remind us why South Africa brought this case and what their claim is.
So South Africa has sort of decided on this one. It's the representative of the Palestinian cause, in a broader sense, a representation of the global South that is non-Western countries that are very unhappy about the Western policies in places like Israel and towards this particular conflict. So it has taken up this call that what Israel is doing in Gaza amounts to genocide, amounts to the destruction of that nation, and has put forward those arguments at the International Court, which is the UN court.
And I mean, what's Israel's defense? Clearly, they are totally denying this.
Of course, and they very angrily say that it's turning the whole idea of genocide on its head. They say that the Holocaust is, of course, the sort of world's supreme example of a genocide. They say that anti-Semitism is a genocidal instinct, that the attack that Hamas perpetrated on October the 7th was a sort of genocidal attack, in that its aim is to get rid of the state of Israel and thereby to destroy it and the Jewish people as a nation. So they're saying it turns it on its head. We won't see that decided today. These cases take a long time to decide. What we'll hear today is whether there are any interim measures, whether the court says to Israel, okay, you have to stop this war now, you have to stop this attack on Gaza because it could become genocidal.
Right. So
genocidal.
Yeah, so there's two separate rulings, aren't there? And as you rightly point out, I mean, a ruling on whether this constitutes genocide could in fact take years, I was reading. But this ruling today, what power does this court have if it were to make a ruling that Israel has to stop its action in Gaza? Is that enforceable?
Well, the UN has no armies, so I think probably not. On the other hand, Israel has represented itself. It's effectively agreed to the jurisdiction of the court in that sense. So it is taking this very seriously. I mean, there are all sorts of possible outcomes today in terms of these interim orders. I think Israel, if it does come up with the most extreme interim order, which is, yes, you have to stop this war right now, then I think Israel would be in a bit of a quandary. It won't want to follow that. I suspect it probably would not, but there would be a lot of moral pressure on it to do so.
So what are the possible, you say that there are several possible rulings. Just take us through the different scenarios, if you would.
Well, I mean, it's a very the court, the International Court of Justice is not like your local magistrates court. It's not that there's not a heavily coded body of international law to which it can refer. A lot of these cases, by their very nature, are precedents, are kind of sui generis, and the court has a lot of leeway to interpret international law such as it exists and come up with do's and don'ts. So it could give Israel instructions on the way it pursues the war. issue warnings about, some of the natures of the attacks that it has been carrying out. It could just be a sort of little moral list saying, try not to kill civilians. It may decide to do nothing at all, of course, or all the way up to, yes, you have to stop this war. It is already out of hand.
And whatever the outcome, I mean, there has been a growing wider international political pressure, hasn't there, on Israel because of the sheer number of Palestinians that have died. Clearly, within that number, there are some Hamas fighters, but there are many high numbers of civilians, women and children who have died. And if the court was to rule in any way that Israel needs to rein back or stop, that is going to add more pressure to Israel, isn't it?
Sure. I think for a lot of countries it'd be quite decisive. I mean, it'd be very interesting what the United States did. The president of the court at the moment happens to be American. I mean, it's not always it's a rotational thing. There are 15 permanent judges of the international court. Then each of the two countries that are participating provide a judge. There's 17 in all. And I say the president currently is an American judge. So. That would have a lot of impact on America, which of course is Israel's main backer. It's very notable. Lord Cameron, the British Foreign Secretary, was in Israel this week. Britain, of course, was a very strong supporter of Israel at the start of the war. Even Britain is now calling for a ceasefire, a permanent end to hostilities. Cameron was quite clear about the need to present a path. Even now, as the war proceeds towards a solution that includes a two-state solution, which Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, is set against. There is a lot of nervousness in Israel about this case. I mean, it could impose a lot of pressure on Israel's choices.
And what time are we expecting this ruling?
I can't tell you the exact time. I think it's 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock Brussels time.
Gosh, so in the next few hours. Listen, Richard, always good to speak to you. Thank you so much. That is the Times correspondent, Richard Spencer, who is in Israel. We are expecting that ruling from the International Court of Justice on whether Israel will be ordered to halt its military operations in Gaza. So there's two rulings. There's the ruling on that and a separate ruling on whether Israel has committed genocide. That could take years.
And what's interesting is, as Richard said, it may not lead to a policy change from Israel, but make it more difficult for the UK, the USA to continue to support Israel in the way they have done. So we're going to look at the implications of that.